Long live the Republic of Cameroon and its illustrious President Paul Biya, Head of State. I thank you for your kind attention.
Your Excellency Philemon Yang, thank you very much for accepting to join us on Cameroon Calling.
Thank you, sir.
And happy celebration.
Thank you very much. I wish you a wonderful day.
Today we are celebrating 40 years of President Biya in power. What are we celebrating in earnest? Is it longevity? Is it the achievements? What is it?
Thank you, sir. We are celebrating everything. Longevity, achievements, psychological achievements too. First of all, longevity. 40 years are a very short time in the life of a nation, because 40 years is little or nothing when you think of nations like Switzerland, which have been in existence since 1291. That's more than 700 years ago. For Cameroon, we're still a very young nation, so 40 years is very short. When we imagine that in 500 years, 1,000 years, we'll still be here as Cameroon. Then, if in the life of a human being, that's a very short time. We're also celebrating many achievements. Political achievements, economic achievements, cultural achievements. Talking of the political achievements, you can imagine democratization, that's a big achievement. Decentralization, the special status. When you come to economic achievements, you can immediately imagine all the money we have in this country. This is very different from what we had in 1982, when this country was hardly 22 years old. And in Africa, there were difficult situations, coup d'etat, and all kinds of upheavals. So we are celebrating many things. There are also psychological achievements. You know, even if people don't say so, rigor is with us. Moralization is with us. And most of all, living together. These are psychological achievements which can never be reduced to nothing. We don't see them, they are invisible, but they are extremely important to us.
Critics, Mr. Philemon Yang, say that 40 years is too much for a leader. To them, democracy is limitation of terms of office. Would you say that they are looking at democracy from the white man's perspective or from the Western perspective?
I would say they are looking at democracy from a perspective which doesn't work for us. I think we shouldn't be looking at models. Models are very dangerous, because each of the models you're going to see is an oversimplification of a complex situation. And Cameroon has constantly been creating our own way of doing business. Looking at democracy, we should look at the institutions and not at individuals. Here, as of now, democracy is a process which is ongoing. The institutions are becoming more and more powerful. And individuals are not very powerful. You can imagine anybody can be subjected to the law, and that is a good thing for us. So on judging our democracy, it has nothing to do with the fact that President Paul Biya has been in power for 40 years. On the contrary, it would show that we are a great country. He's gone from one ballot to the next, and the Constitution allows him to be a candidate. So we are a democratic country in the process of becoming more democratic, and like most countries, we keep improving upon the democracy we have. So this is a vibrant democracy which is doing very well, and I would only thank Cameroonians for embracing democracy.
Some fear that the head of state is more powerful than the institutions.
No, that is a rumor, that is a wrong presumption, because in this country the laws are more powerful. You can see many people are taken to courts and one day they are discharged. Many people get investigated, but they never go to prison. That's a sign that the laws are powerful. The institutions like CONAC are doing well. Elecam is not subjected to anybody. Elecam is doing its work. And then the private businesses are doing their work the way they should do it. The churches are practicing the greatest freedom of religion. I hardly see churches complaining in this country. So this is a sign that the president is the president of Cameroon.
I know you are a fervent Christian of the Cameroon Baptist
I
Convention.
am, and I do so with a lot of pride, and I feel very great that way.
Let's talk President Biya and the Anglophone question, the socio-political unrest in the northwest and southwest regions. I know this erupted with You as Prime Minister, head of government, efforts were made severally to bring this to a halt. But how preoccupied was he and is he about the situation?
President Paul Biya has been preoccupied even before the crisis. But the crisis has been with us. There have been other things before. Around 1979, he was in a committee that dealt with the thing from a group called Cameroon Action Movement. They were complaining. And in the early 2000s, we had to go out on a mission to deal with people who called themselves SCNC. Before this came up. And in fact, the issue of people being dissatisfied goes back to 1961. There were people who didn't vote for the reunification with French-speaking Cameroon. So this is not a new thing. The president has been used to this. He has been very much involved passionately with the Cameroonian, with our place in history and our place in the world. But when this started, President Paul Biya became even more attached to the issues concerning Anglophones. And I know every time I go to see him, the issue would be on the table. And this is interesting because President Paul Biya, from the word go, when the strike started in Bamenda in 2016, he sent me to Bamenda. We worked with the lawyers, worked with the teachers. 2 ad hoc committees were created, one for the teachers, one for the lawyers. The 2 committees did a marvelous job. And I can tell you clearly, President Paul Biya approved all the conclusions of the 2 ad hoc committees. So this can show you his concern. He doesn't want any Anglophone to have a particular problem because he has a listening ear. What has brought us to where we are now, the violence, is an issue which didn't come before the ad hoc committees. Cessation. That was not an issue. And I think cessation is a difficult thing, and those looking for cessation went for it. They didn't even care about the solutions which had been found to the lawyers' issues and to the teachers' issues. So President Paul Biya has been very present, very consistent, and concerned about the place of the Anglophone.
While announcing the major national dialogue, the head of state actually expressed his good faith, citing, amongst other issues, the appointment of Anglophones successively as Prime Minister's head of government. I guess you are a living testimony to that.
Yes, President Paul Biya said this, and he said this in a good sense, and he was speaking in good faith. What he wanted to show is that, I have never closed my mind to Anglophones. I have listened and I continue to listen. And I decided for a number of years to make Anglophones prime ministers. This means I have a lot of respect for Anglophones as a linguistic minority, but I also believe that they are capable of making their own contribution at a high level. And it should be understood in the sense that he was saying, with the Anglophones, I am on board. I can't go backwards. My cooperation with the Anglophones is irreversible. And so I have given this important post so that Anglophones can make their own contribution at a high level.
Some have been criticizing. They've tried to water this down, saying the post of PM is simply ceremonial, citing, first of all, the protocolar issues of how a prime minister is neither second nor third. As former PM, what's your take? How powerful is a prime minister head of government?
Thank you, sir. That's interesting. Yes, the Constitution is very clear on this. The legal position is that the Prime Minister directs the action of the government. It has not changed. And the Prime Minister consistently does that. When people say that the place of the Prime Minister has been degraded, these are all rumors. None of them knows what the Prime Minister does exactly. The work of the Prime Minister is not done in a public place. He directs the government, he manages the government, and directly instructs the ministers who are under his direct supervision. When he speaks to the president, the public isn't there. So it's very unfair to think that the position doesn't have the substance which has been given to it. In many ways, I think the position might even be more powerful than it is in the Constitution, because the Prime Minister plays a very important role in the policy of the country. And the Prime Minister works directly with the President and with the ministers. None of these things are done in a marketplace. So I think it's unfair to base one's conclusions on rumors. The Prime Minister remains a very active and a very important personality in this country.
Perhaps it's because on a couple of occasions the public has had the impression that ministers want to prove how strong they are and minimize the position. And to some, it's just because the Prime Minister is from the English-speaking part of the country.
No, I think that is a wrong conclusion because you can see that, and many things we see are completely different from the reality. And people can have that impression, but in reality what I'm saying works out the way I was describing it to you. Because it's difficult to see the language of the Prime Minister. It doesn't really matter. The Prime Minister is appointed to serve the whole country. I mean, if you become Prime Minister, you understand that sitting in that seat, you cannot begin to serve only one part of the country. You're Prime Minister for the whole nation, and the nation expects you to serve the country.
Unfortunately, in a Cameroonian way of life, ministers, we see homecomings here and there, and it gives the impression to many that it's on the aspect of maybe your region or your division that you're made Prime Minister. You served in that capacity for 10 years. Is it difficult to make a difference between Philemon Yang not being Anglophone, Philemon Yang not being from the Northwest, and Philemon Yang serving the nation?
I think it's normal that people think that way. We come from a system where tribes are very important, and tribes are not dangerous. It all depends on how you use the tribe. But we have to make choices, and every Prime Minister will have to make choices, and the choices have consequences. Once you're Prime Minister, you've got to understand, and it happens all the time, that you're not there because you've come from a tribe. You could come from a tribe, but the President didn't use the tribe as the reason for the appointment. It's clear that the President appreciates the qualities, number one, and sees that you can lead a government. And we should never, never think that people are just put there because they represent a region. They must have the qualities to run a government, and they must also have the personality and the mindset to run a government. So I think being from one place or the other is a good thing, but it shouldn't be what determines the success or the choice of a Prime Minister.
Before we take leave of you, a word to Cameroonians, and why not especially those from the Northwest and Southwest regions?
To the people in the Northwest and the Southwest region, you are fundamentally Cameroonian. I am Anglophone. The future of the two regions is in this country. Decentralization is a powerful idea. Decentralization is a better solution for the two regions than secession or federalism. We are at the beginning of a very powerful process, and this is in our interest. This, my dear friends of the Northwest and Southwest, is not a perfect society. The President has said it. But now we've seen many things. We cannot change the past, but we're capable. We have the money, the trained personnel to do better than we did in the past. We should look into the future and build together so that we can make this country our paradise on earth. We shouldn't be taking chances we don't have a future. We shouldn't oversimplify a situation which is complex. We already know our Francophone brothers. We can work with them. Living together has been complex, but we are by far better than we were in 1961. We are by far better than we were in 1982, and we are in a completely different country now. The President said it on the 31st of December 2019. He said this is a new country with decentralization. So I ask you, my brothers and sisters in the Northwest and Southwest, come on board. We are here to stay. There are great things coming. We will never again be the same, and we're going to succeed together, and we are part of a great nation.
Philemon Yang, former Prime Minister, Grand Chancellor of the National Orders, thank you for being there.
Thank you, sir.